So a lot of us know who Ashiana Dean is. If you don't, she is part of the spiritual community. She's been around forever, since the 90s at least, that I know of. And she has a lot of awesome videos on information that you just don't hear mainstream. Even on like the Gaia channel or other channels that have spiritual information that they give. But I've watched all of her stuff. I love her stuff on like the history and the different dimensional stuff. I just love listening to all the things she has to say. I've watched her technique videos on flame body activations and Maharic shielding. I didn't agree with the teachings on that stuff, so I watched it, but I didn't participate in it. I just wanted to see for myself like what she teaches on, specifically those things. But this is a conversation that I had with somebody that is very deep into her teachings and has done all of the activations, and I follow her on TikTok. And she had posted a video, and one of the things that I had a problem with Ashiana Dean's teachings was with how she talks, it seems, out of both sides of her mouth, where on one hand she's saying you have a direct connection to source, you don't need to outsource to get information, all the information you need you can pull from your higher self, from source. Like, you don't need to talk to other beings, you don't need to channel. Specifically, she says not to channel and not to talk to other beings, because she says you just don't know who they are. And granted, she says, through the series of her teachings, you can then get to know your energy and then know other energies to be able to discern. But she specifically has been talking to what she calls the Guardian Alliance, from what she says, since she was a child. So she didn't know about these techniques previous to this, which is like one question I have with people who have entity contact from a young age. And this isn't me saying, oh, everyone who talks to entities, like, they're all bad entities. Like, I don't believe that, but I just don't feel like there would be a clear discernment. And again, always going back to the fact that you shouldn't be outsourcing to any third parties, and that is stopping your ascension. So this video is just going through the different nuances of her teachings and how I feel like it's double speech, and I feel the need to tell people about this, because maybe you'll be able to see different red flags within other spiritual leaders, if you want to call them that, within the New Age movement. So the message in the description of this video says, do not rely heavily on outside information, only rely on yourself. But again, that's what Ashiana Dean does during her teachings. And I've seen personally that we can protect ourselves just by picturing the light bubble of highest love around us, because our minds are the most powerful thing, and we are connected to source at all times. From what I've seen, again, no Maharic shield is needed, or special knowledge that we need to learn. It's same with the grid work. Like, when I was introduced to grid work, it was a remembering that I had. It was like I was in the yard sitting in a chair, and I had this like vision of something I needed to do protection over, an area, and I just started doing a meditation on it, and the visuals and everything that I needed to know, which was basic, came to me. It was like something that I had already known how to do, that I must have either, it was my DNA or something was activated that allowed me to remember something that was already known. So, and with the grid work too, she goes from location to location, and a lot of people that I see that talk about grid work, they go to these different locations. Well, I am completely all for that, because of the different energetic, the different energetic areas hold different resonances depending on the ley lines and things like that. But I've seen from when I do grid work, because the space around us, is an illusion, so to speak, we can be in different areas of the world just going inward into our mind. So again, think of remote viewing. That's how they remote view. They're going to a different location on the map, but they're doing it spiritually. They're not doing it physically. So then she responds and said, they're not entities, they're the guardians who seeded this time matrix. As though we would know the difference. Again, obviously energy doesn't lie, but we are so deaf, dumb, and blind to anything that is our natural makeup, being spiritual and energy and all of that, that again, and then again, you go back to outsourcing, third partying. It's stopping your own ascension and your own awakening of your own DNA, because all the information we need is already within us. So then I say, the point I'm making is the message is based on not getting information from anything outside of ourselves, and our personal connection to source is all that's needed. But that's not what Ashiana Deanne's actions say. That's what her words say, but the actions don't match. Her actions say that we should talk to outside entities and trust them if they say that they're the Guardian Alliance. And she says it's an energy thing, but she didn't know that energy prior to contact with them. An example of this is the biblical text and how these people claimed and thought that they were talking to the one true God, who clearly it was not the one true God. And this God or entity that they were talking to, specifically, one example is the Garden of Eden, where God, quote unquote, came back to the garden and found Adam and Eve to have done X, Y, and Z. If this was an omnipresent God who is everywhere and part of everything, that source God knows everything that's already taken place. It's not going to be like, oh my God, you did what? You did what while I was gone? Where were you? What? And this entity could be heard walking around the garden. They heard, quote unquote, God. So now listen to these next few clips and then I'll come back.
You have to know the frequency of yourself before you bring in the frequencies of other beings or entities for communication. Ashiana Dean specifically said no channeling, because there are people out there who are channeling a collective of beings, the Anunnakis, and sharing misinformation in the spiritual community as part of a program to dissuade people from learning more about themselves and locking them up further so that they do not achieve activation of their DNA and therefore have access to their memories. For Ashiana Dean herself would use a method of channeling, although she didn't call it channeling, she called it chelantic communication, where she received a transmission. And it kind of is like a package of information. And a lot of people describe it as like a zip file. It's a heavy condensed piece of information coming in that you then speeds through you really quickly, and you quickly have to relay the information. There's so much of it. It's so richly detailed and layered. And so that's what she would receive. But she wouldn't receive it via allowing a being or entity into her own personal biofield. She wouldn't do it in that way. It was a stream of communication that came down and that she would receive. So nobody was infiltrating her personal biofield and her personal spiritual space.
Let Ma explain some of this. More of this is going to be talked about tomorrow on Paxis. There's something special they want us to do there. Okay. Anyway. All right. All right. He says we would like greetings. First of all, he's saying greetings to all of you, and it has been a long time. You know me, and I know you, and one day we will remember together. But for now, there are pressing moments at hand. We are not here to frighten you. We are here to prepare you.
Of course, the very first thing you should do whenever you start this journey is practice the Maharic shielding technique, which is bringing in your Christos avatar, 12th dimensional reality self, which will protect you from intruders, invaders that do not have your highest Christos, potential in mind, and will infiltrate your fields. It will not allow that. You use the Maharic shielding technique before going into, say, a healing session with a friend or somebody that you know is a healer. You do it before you go in to see a masseuse or an acupuncturist. You do it on a daily to protect your fields. So yes, she is saying no channeling, do not channel, but she herself is also receiving channeled information in a way from a source of right. And so the argument here is that she's receiving the information from the guardian races, the ones who seeded this time matrix to begin with. So that is the source that you want to go to, rather than alternative entities from other higher dimensional spaces that we don't know the source of.
There's a denial factor that a lot of people don't want to hear that because it's more fun. I can go talk to my angels. They don't really care if their angels are actually angels because it feels good to talk to somebody because they feel lonesome and they feel special. Now there's somebody from someplace else that nobody else can see is actually talking to them. Aim higher and try to encourage people that you see that are doing that to aim higher. Teach them about their Christos self. The first person you want to contact is you. Once you do that, the universe is open, because once you have what's called a dedicated line, which is your Maharic seal and your flame bodies now, you can talk to anything. You can talk to Weesadex and they can't touch you.
You can talk to anything. You can talk to Weesadex and they can't touch you.
And with our Maharic shielding, which again I said has its own intelligence and consciousness, would not allow, with your intention being set to only have access to guardian information and guardian communication, would not allow another entity to come in.
The thing I'm trying to drive home right now is the fact that they keep saying this is basically like the ultimate protection, and then you can do whatever you want. You do this, you learn these flame body activations and Maharic shielding, which is like a process, and then you can talk to any entity you want and they can't touch you. Like she says here, the technology given for ultimate protection and activation is here. Now listen to what happened to Ashiana Deanne.
There was an event that happened in 2012 called the Christic Split. It's just a split between the communities where Ashiana Dean apparently became attacked by dark avatars and succumbed to the infiltration, divorced her then speaker to husband, and went on in a court battle with him. It was very sad. It shocked the community, and so now she does not promote or share the teachings that she relayed as speaker one from about 1990 to 2012. She will not share those. Those are then being shut down if they're found on YouTube by her company, unfortunately, and there are people that are trying to preserve those teachings, the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order teachings. Anything after that, 2011 approximately, would be a distortion of the truth, as some evidential information that was given to her by the guardian speaking to her. She had changed later and just reported a totally different story on certain. There's so many different examples of why it's a completely different woman now than what she was before.
The interesting thing is she made this video after our conversation. It popped up because I was like, God, can you give me like more information on this? Because it doesn't seem right. Like, I feel like, am I being super judgmental, or is this like how it feels? And then this video literally popped up when I opened TikTok, and it was her talking about how Ashiana Deanne basically became possessed. So then this guy writes, so wouldn't that mean that her teachings, or at least her practices, failed? If your teacher is overtaken by dark avatars, how are you going to avoid the same? Especially if you're told this is the ultimate protection. Isn't that not convoluted information? Distortions?